Hey guys, hope everyone's enjoying the weekend. Hope everyone enjoyed their Sunday and is looking forward to the upcoming week. I wanted to create this video just to talk a little bit about Trump's speech, which he just gave um, here at CPAC 2021, where I wanted to basically cover six main takeaways from his speech. I divide like six parts that I'm going to quickly go over. After this video, I'm going to make one talking a little bit about the CPAC straw poll and its results, which I thought were pretty interesting. But just to go for some takeaways and some quick analysis in the speech, first, I think the main emphasis was a type of grievance politics, followed by probably the smallest portion, but something I thought that was significant was a general outline of like what it means to be, a Republican, at least in the vision of Trump or, a Trumpist type of Republican right-wing populism. Third was a relitigation of the 2020 election. The fourth was revenge on the GOP establishment and specifically the senators and representatives who voted to either impeach him or convict him in his impeachment trial. Fifth, tried to lay out a rationale for why the GOP has to be with him, and then sixth, and I thought somewhat significant was that he kind of announced his 2024 campaign, although it's still pretty ambiguous if he actually is going to run or not. So, kind of just diving in here. And unfortunately, I don't really have too much to guide me in terms of slides, just some notes I took. But, I thought with regards to like the grievance politics, I mean, he kind of, overall in this speech kind of did the Trump, greatest hits, so to speak. So, he talked about, the Democrats' radicalism, socialism, communism, Biden, how left he is going. Like even Trump did not realize how far left he would go. Tossed a little bit of innuendo about Biden not fully understanding what was going on, implying, something that was propagated in right-wing media that, he has dementia or some form of, reduced capacity mentally. America went from America first to America last. Now we're an open borders nation. They're talking about the climate, the Paris Climate Accords, cancellation of Keystone XL pipeline, transgender individuals in women's sports, attacks on big tech, repealing Section 230, bringing up the riots from this summer without notably bringing up the riots on January 6th committed by his supporters, going after NAFTA, Democrats, just general attacks on, Republicans and what the Democratic Party stands for, that they are the party of socialism and cancel culture, kneeling for the flag, disrespecting our history, which kind of leads into the second point of what the GOP is for, in his opinion, which is things like standing for the flag, tough line on immigration, merit-based immigration, protecting and respecting our police forces, ending the forever wars, as he calls them, and so forth. Generally not a whole lot new there, but in kind of those first two takeaways, which tend to be, the actual, I guess, content of the platforms, of both parties, he kind of, obviously, he went after the Democrats and kind of proposed a vision of what what he is for with regards to the Republican Party. Now, the third major one, and the thing that I thought was the saddest thing for me about the speech, because up until this point, I thought that he kind of led with the grievance politics, the outline of Trumpism, and I was thinking to myself, well, this is pretty much your run-of-the-mill Trump speech. Like, yes, he has said a few things about the election, like he mentions relatively early on, like actually, referring to the Democrats, they actually just lost the White House and that he was going that he might just have to win it for a third time. But, I thought to myself, a couple of pot shots here and there. For the most part, this is just the normal grievance-based politics with a little bit of, general overarching vision there thrown in. But then he kind of went into, or he really went into a relitigation of the 2020 election, complete with an attack on the judicial branch, attacks on the Supreme Court, saying that they didn't have the courage to, address the alleged voter fraud that occurred in swing states. And, basically going over, how is it possible for, him to have lost having won 74 million ballots or votes, when of course we all know that the reason why he lost was because Joe Biden received approximately 71 million, approximately 7 more million votes, roughly 81 million votes to his 74. But that didn't stop him from doing a relitigation of the 2020 election, calling it fraud, that we need to crack down on all this types of voter fraud, institute more strict type of regulations, and, basically just went through the whole litany of things that he repeated, about mail-in voting and absentee voting, all the way from, early in 2020, and then obviously which intensified in the aftermath of his loss in the 2020 election. Then of course he went into getting some revenge on the GOP establishment, everyone from Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, Mitch McConnell, to the Adam Kinzingers, Liz Cheney's, etc., who either voted to impeach him in the case of people like Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, or voted to convict him, as senators like Mitt Romney and Ben Sasse did in the Senate. That was to be relatively expected, but still, in my opinion, nonetheless, relatively concerning and, saddening. Because, one of the things he was trying to convey was a united GOP. The very fact that he has to go over and try to attack these people is a clear demonstration of the GOP not being united behind this overarching vision that Trump has, or at the very least, not necessarily vision, but just behind Trump. The fifth thing that I mentioned, that the GOP has to be with him. And one of the things I thought was interesting was that he pointed out the 1.5 million more votes that he received than House GOP candidates, as evidence that not them outperforming despite Trump, but evidence that, they rode Trump's coattails, which may be true in, specific, House districts here and there. However, the main reason for that, as anyone who, has a basic grasp of electoral politics and the dynamics of local House races, is that not every House member ends up running, or not every Republican contests every House district. And that's the same thing for Democrats. But my understanding is that there were fewer uncontested races on behalf of Republicans than there were relative to Democrats, which partly explains that discrepancy. So, you look at a place, and it's also important to remember that, Democrats received 4 million, roughly, less votes than Joe Biden did in the House, which plays to this nature of, that's partly explained at least, although obviously not entirely, due to House candidate overperformance relative to Trump in some districts, due to Democrats not contesting these districts. I mean, for example, like here in Washington's 10th district around Seattle, like there were 2 Democrats on the ticket with write-in candidates. There was no Republican. So that's, probably several tens of thousands of votes that you can throw away for the Republicans. And that was repeated in various other areas around the country, like in Alabama's 7th district, for example. But nonetheless, that didn't stop him from making the false claims. And, I think that it's important to kind of talk like, if you want to see like the outperformance, it's probably better to look at a place like Maine, for example, where you see Susan Collins win a state by roughly 8.6 percentage points in a state that Trump lost by about the, flip side, about 9.1%. And, you can It wasn't the case everywhere. Trump did outrun certain Senate candidates. However, that was definitely not the cases in a lot of competitive places like Texas, New Mexico, which was a little bit more competitive than expected, Colorado, Michigan, not I don't believe Illinois, but Michigan, Minnesota, you know, a whole bunch of states where the Republican candidate did better. And then in conclusion, point number six here, point number six was that he kind of announced his 2024 campaign, where I believe the quote was that he would, not he, but there would be a former president, quote, making a, quote, triumphant return to the White House in 2024. So, that's definitely seemed to imply that he is going to run again for the presidency. We'll have to see. I mean, it's definitely possible. Right now, I would peg it at roughly a 50-50% chance. And maybe after today, I would peg it at something closer to a maybe 55-60% percent chance. However, we're going to probably have to wait a few, at least my best guess is until 2023 before we have final clarity on that. So anyways, I'll wrap it up on that. That's my takeaway. I mean, overall, it was pretty much your standard Trump speech, full of grievance politics with a couple of slightly more what I would consider focus, forward-looking visions for the GOP as far as what the party stands for. But that was probably the smallest part, with grievance politics being the biggest. Then, of course, there was the expected relitigation of 2020, the revenge on the GOP, and him sort of announcing his campaign and trying to articulate why the GOP has to unite behind him. So anyways, I'll leave it with that. Next video is going to be on the straw poll results, which were, in my opinion, surprisingly bad for Trump. However, I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys for watching. As always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if there are any videos you'd be interested in. Thanks again. Hope you're having a good one, and enjoy the upcoming week. Bye.